Welcome to the Hardware Stack, January 15, 2026. Today we cover FCC approval for 7,500 Starlink Gen2 satellites, an Apple emulator on an ESP32 tablet, new US AI GPU export rules for China, and a bill targeting offshore chip access. The Federal Communications Commission has partially approved SpaceX's request to deploy 7,500 additional Starlink Gen2 satellites, bringing the total authorized constellation size to 15,000 satellites. The FCC granted authority for half of SpaceX's requested 30,000 satellite plan, deferring the remainder for future review. The approval includes new orbital shells at 340 kilometers, 365 to 485 to 485 kilometers altitude ranges. SpaceX must have 50% of the new satellites operational by December 1, 2028, with the full deployment completed by December 1, 2031. The FCC also authorized Gen 2 operations across Ku-band, K-band, V-band, E-band, and W-band frequencies, including specific spectrum allocations for U.S. supplemental coverage from space operations in the 1910 to 1915 MHz uplink and 1995 MHz downlink bands. A developer named Amcord has ported the Basilisk 2 Mac emulator to the ESP32 P4 M5 Stack TAD5 tablet, a $60 IoT device featuring a 5-inch 1280x720 IPS touchscreen. This port enables emulation of Mac OS8.1 with a virtual MC68040 CPU, leveraging the ESP32 P4's dual-core RISC-V architecture running at 400 MHz. One core handles video and ITO, while the other manages the 68040 interpreter and system functions. The emulator is limited to 16 megabytes of memory, half of the device's 32 megabytes, and operates at a 15 frames per second refresh rate. Users can load macOS and applications from HDD and CD images stored on an SD card, including boot ROM files. This represents a significant advancement in 68K Mac emulation performance on microcontrollers, delivering mid-199s Mac-level computing on a budget device. The U.S. Department of Commerce has established specific export rules for AI GPUs destined for China, requiring a total processing performance score below 210,000 points and DRAM bandwidth under 6,500 gigabytes per second. AMD's Instinct MI3225X GPU with a TPP score of 20,800 points and 256 GB of HBM3E memory, and NVIDIA's H200 with a TPP score of 15,832 points and 132 points and 100 these limits. Crucially, shipments to China must not exceed 50% of the same product shipped to the United States, meaning if a company sends 100,000 units to the US, only 50,000 can go to China. All exports require verification of technical specifications at an independent US-based testing lab with no financial ties to the exporter or importer. The U.S. House of Representatives has passed the Remote Access Security Act, a bipartisan bill targeting a loophole that allowed Chinese companies to access U.S. export-controlled AI chips through offshore cloud rentals. The bill specifically addresses incidents like the $100 million deal, where Shanghai-based INF Tech allegedly rented 2,300 banned NVIDIA GB200 servers from an Indonesian telecommunications company. These servers, part of the Blackwell architecture, were used to train AI models such as Alibaba's Qwen and ByteDance's Dubao. The legislation extends export controls to cloud computing, closing the loophole that enabled access to over 2,000 GPUs. Chairman John Moulinar emphasized that China's AI ambitions are being fueled by such access, with the new law aiming to prevent further circumvention of U.S. export restrictions. Thanks for tuning in to the Hardware Stack. Join us next week for more deep dives into the tech world. We appreciate your listenership.